Captain William Grant stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, his eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that had appeared near Jupiter's orbit. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built. It seemed to bend light around its silvery hull, and it was at least 3 times the size of Earth's largest spacecraft. "Any response to our messages?" Grant asked, his voice steady despite the tension that gripped his chest. Lisa Martinez looked up from her communication station. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her fingers moved quickly across the glowing panel before her. "They're sending something now, Captain. I think it's a language matrix." Grant nodded. First contact protocol was clear. Establish communication, show peaceful intent, protect Earth's interests. He straightened his uniform and watched as Martinez worked to decode the alien transmission. The main screen flickered and filled with symbols that rapidly transformed into English text. Martinez had done it. The universal translation algorithm was working. "We represent the Galactic Council, a federation of 32 spacefaring species," Martinez read aloud. "Your species has been observed and is now eligible for integration. Prepare to receive our envoys." Grant frowned. Integration. I don't like the sound of that. 6 hours later, 3 alien representatives stood in the Intrepid's conference room. The tallest one, with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms, introduced himself as High Counselor Zixpar. The aliens showed no aggression, but Grant noticed how they looked around the room with what seemed like surprise, or perhaps disappointment. "We bring the Standard Integration Treaty," Zixpar said, placing a thin metallic tablet on the table. "Once signed, Earth will be welcomed as the 33rd member species of the Galactic Council." Martinez studied the treaty as it translated on her device. She looked up with concern in her eyes. "Captain, this treaty requires Earth to submit to Council authority in all interstellar matters. We would have to change our government structure, our military, even some of our basic freedoms." Grant crossed his arms. "I don't have the authority to sign such a document. This would need approval from Earth's governments." The aliens exchanged glances. The smallest one, with green scales and large yellow eyes, spoke in a hushed tone to Zixpar. "There must be a misunderstanding," Zixpar said. "The treaty is standard. All species sign upon first contact." "Not this species," Grant replied firmly. "We'll take your proposal back to Earth for review, but I can tell you now, there will be questions and likely requests for changes." The aliens' reaction was strange. They stepped back, their postures stiffening. The 3rd alien, who had not yet spoken, made a sound that the translation system couldn't process, something between a gasp and a hiss. "This is unexpected," Zixpar said. His 4 hands trembled slightly. "In 12,000 years of Council history, no species has ever refused initial integration." Grant shrugged. "Well, you haven't met humans before." 3 days later, the Intrepid was heading back to Earth, carrying copies of the treaty and recordings of the meetings. Grant sat in his quarters, reviewing the encounter. Something wasn't right. The aliens had seemed genuinely shocked by Earth's refusal, almost afraid. Meanwhile, across the stars, Zixpar stood before the full Galactic Council on their capital world, Nexus Prime. Hundreds of representatives from 32 species filled the vast chamber, and all fell silent as Zixpar delivered the news. "The humans have refused the Standard Integration Treaty," he announced, his voice echoing. "They demand to negotiate." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives shouted questions, others rose from their seats in alarm. A few began to pray. At the very back of the chamber, junior diplomat Krulteth watched with fascination. His species had joined the council only 50 years ago, and he had never seen the usually orderly council in such disarray. "Why are they so afraid?" he whispered to his mentor. The older diplomat's eyes were wide. "Because the prophecy states that one day a species would come who would refuse to bow, and their arrival would either destroy the galaxy or transform it forever." Panic was spreading through the council, and humanity had no idea they had just changed the course of galactic history. Junior diplomat Krillteth had never seen the Grand Council chamber so full. Representatives from all 32 species crowded the circular room, their voices creating a storm of noise that the chamber's acoustic design couldn't fully dampen. The smell of fear was thick in the air, detectable even to species with minimal olfactory senses. Krillteth found a spot near the back wall, his height allowing him to see over the heads of many representatives. At the center of the chamber, the 12 High Counselors sat in a circle, their faces grim. High Counselor HFY stood, raising all 4 of his arms for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. The humans have refused our standard treaty. Not only the first version, but also the second, third, and now the 4th, HFY announced. Their diplomat, a male called Eric Collins, continues to request amendments. The chamber erupted again. A large armored figure rose from the military section. General Vrook of the Vargan Imperium. His species was known for their warrior culture and direct approach. This is clearly a threat. Vrook growled, his voice cutting through the noise. No species refuses integration unless they plan conquest. We should mobilize immediately. From another section, a slender figure with glowing patterns on pale skin stood. This was Elder Celia of the Eleanor, the oldest council species known for their scholarly wisdom. We must not rush to judgment, Celia said softly, yet her voice carried. Perhaps humans possess unique intelligence or insight. Their refusal might be born of wisdom, not aggression. A third figure rose, Merchant Prince Dex of the Traxian Consortium. His species control much of the Council's trade networks. I see opportunity here, Dex said, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Humans clearly value independence. They might pay handsomely for technology, while remaining outside our political structure. Krillteth watched with fascination. In 50 years of council membership, his people had never questioned the wisdom of integration. It was simply what all species did. Why were humans different? Near the center of the chamber, a data specialist presented findings on a large holographic display. Humans are rapidly upgrading their defensive systems, the specialist reported. They have reversed engineered several concepts from the technical appendices in our treaties. Their adaptation rate exceeds our models. This news sent fresh waves of concern through the chamber. Krillteth noticed even Elder Celia looked troubled. High Counselor HFY raised his arms again. We have new information that is most disturbing. Our preliminary psychic assessments indicate humans might be resistant. The chamber fell completely silent. Krillteth felt a chill. All council species were susceptible to certain psychic influences. It was what made the council function smoothly, what allowed disputes to be resolved peacefully. If humans were immune, we will draft a 5th treaty, HFY announced, with terms more favorable than any we have offered in our history. After the session ended, Krillteth followed his mentor, Senior Diplomat Morith, down a quiet corridor. Why is everyone so afraid? Krillteth asked. Humans have shown no aggression. Morith glanced around to ensure they were alone. The council was formed 12,000 years ago after the Great Devastation. The founding species created the integration system to ensure peace. I know this history, Krillteth said. What you don't know, Morith whispered, is that integration includes subtle psychic components that make species more compliant. It's for the greater good. But if humans are naturally resistant, and they learn of this, Krillteth's eyes widened. They would never trust us again. Worse, Morith said. They might tell other species. The entire foundation of council unity could collapse. Far away on Earth, Eric Collins sat in a secure room with military and political leaders. On screens around them were images of the alien treaty and technical data. Their 5th offer gives us access to more technology, Collins explained. But they still demand final authority over our military actions. Not acceptable, said a general firmly. We'll counter again, Collins said. But I have to wonder, why are they so desperate for us to sign? What aren't they telling us? In space, silent and unannounced, a council battle group began moving toward Earth's solar system. Agent Jexnar adjusted his human disguise as he walked through the busy streets of Washington, D.C. His skin itched where the synthetic covering met his natural hide, but the discomfort was worth it. No one gave him a second glance. To them, he was just John Smith, a tourist taking photos of famous buildings. The council had sent 12 agents to Earth. Their mission was simple: understand why humans refused integration. Jexnar had been assigned to observe Karen Wilson, Earth's national security advisor. He paused outside a large white building, pretending to check his map while his enhanced hearing focused on a conference room 2 floors up. Inside that room, Karen Wilson stood before 6 screens showing the faces of world leaders. Her red hair was pulled back, and dark circles under her eyes showed her lack of sleep. "The aliens are hiding something," Wilson said, pointing to charts on the wall. "Every treaty they offer gives us more technology, but still demands we follow their authority. Why?" "Perhaps they simply want order," suggested one leader. Wilson shook her head. "No, you should see how shocked they are when we negotiate. It's like they've never encountered the concept." Another leader spoke up. "My scientists say their technology is amazing but oddly uniform. 32 species should have more diverse approaches." "Exactly." Wilson slapped the table. "It's like they all think the same way. That's not natural. Different species should have different perspectives, just like different human cultures do." Jexnar found this exchange fascinating. In council space, uniformity was valued. Divergent thinking was seen as disruptive. Yet here was Wilson, proudly pointing out differences, even encouraging them. The meeting continued, voices raised in what council species would consider alarming disorder. Leaders interrupted each other. They disagreed openly. Some even changed their minds after hearing new information. Most shocking to Jexnar, Wilson frequently said, "I could be wrong." But, a phrase no council official would ever utter. Admitting potential error was unthinkable. Later that day, Jexnar followed Wilson to a small restaurant. She sat alone, reviewing documents while eating. He took a table nearby, ordering a hamburger to maintain his cover. Wilson's phone rang. Her face grew serious as she listened. "You're certain?" she asked. "Then, don't approach them." "Yes, all 12. We've known for days." She ended the call and looked directly at Jexnar. Their eyes met. She smiled and walked to his table. "Mind if I join you, John Smith, or do you prefer Jexnar?" His heart raced in panic. How had they discovered him? His disguise was perfect. Wilson sat down. "We detected your ships entering our atmosphere. Your technology is good, but you underestimate us." Jexnar considered his escape options, but Wilson raised her hand. "We're not going to harm you. In fact, I have a proposal. Instead of spying on us, why not observe openly? You want to understand us. We want to understand you." This was not in any council protocol. Jexnar should refuse, return to his ship, and report failure. Instead, he found himself asking, "Why would you allow this?" Wilson shrugged. "Because that's what humans do. We learn from each other. We grow through exchange. And I'm betting your council doesn't know as much about us as they think they do." 2 days later, Jexnar stood without disguise in the same meeting room he had spied on earlier. World leaders on screens looked at him with curiosity rather than fear. "Please explain again," Wilson said. "The Council requires all member species to accept the same basic governmental structure." "Yes," Jexnar confirmed. "It ensures harmony." A leader frowned. "But different species have different needs, different values. The Council believes uniformity prevents conflict," Jexnar explained. Wilson exchanged glances with the others. "And there's our answer. They don't just want allies. They want copies." Jexnar transmitted his report that night. He included everything he had observed about human individualism and their strange comfort with disagreement. He knew it would cause even more panic in the council. What he didn't report was how fascinating he found it all. How watching humans interact made him question ideas he had never thought to question before. And how, for the first time in his life, he wondered if the council might be wrong. Admiral Richard "Rick" Daniels stood at the view screen of Earth's orbital defense platform. Stars glittered against the blackness of space, peaceful and quiet. But Daniels knew better. Somewhere out there, alien ships were moving toward Earth. "Show me the upgraded fleet status," he ordered. A young officer brought up a holographic display showing Earth's defensive forces. Blue dots represented ships that had already been modified with technology reverse-engineered from the Council's treaty appendices. Red dots showed ships still waiting for upgrades. "We're at 60% completion, sir," the officer reported. "The new shield systems are working better than expected." Daniels nodded. In the 3 months since first contact, Earth had made remarkable progress. What might have taken decades of research had been accomplished in weeks. Not because the Council had shared technology willingly, but because human scientists had pieced together clues from the technical data included in the treaty documents. "What's the status of the Council battle group?" Daniels asked. Another screen lit up, showing 12 large vessels moving slowly but steadily toward the solar system. "Still on approach, sir. At their current speed, they'll reach Jupiter's orbit in 9 days." Daniels frowned. The Council claimed this was a diplomatic escort for their next round of negotiations. No one on Earth believed that. Meanwhile, in a laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, scientists Amy Russell and Paul Jenkins worked on Earth's newest defensive technology. "Try it again," Russell said, adjusting settings on her control panel. Jenkins activated the device. A shimmering field appeared around a test drone. He checked his monitors and smiled. "It's working. The shield is reflecting 97% of scans. They won't be able to see what we're doing inside the barrier." Russell allowed herself a small smile. "Let's test it against their weapons frequencies next." The door opened, and Sophia Gomes entered, carrying a tablet. She was neither a military officer nor a government scientist, but a civilian engineer who had made a breakthrough by looking at alien physics from a completely different angle. "I think I've solved the propulsion problem," she announced, showing them her calculations. "The Council's approach assumes that space-time works one way, but what if we approach it from the opposite direction?" Russell and Jenkins studied her work. It was unconventional, even bizarre by traditional physics standards, but the math checked out. "This could work," Jenkins said, amazed. "It's completely different from how the Council does it, but it could actually be more efficient." "How soon can we build a prototype?" Russell asked. Gomes grinned. "Already started. Give me 3 days." In orbit above Earth, a small, unmarked ship powered up its new engines. It was a test vehicle for Earth's latest advancements. Inside, a crew prepared to demonstrate their capabilities where the approaching Council ships could detect them. The ship surged forward, accelerating at speeds no human vessel had ever achieved before. It circled the moon in minutes, then came to a complete stop, hovering as its new shields activated, blocking all incoming scans. Across the void of space, on the lead Council vessel, General Dravkos watched the demonstration with growing alarm. "Did you see that acceleration curve?" he demanded of his science officer. "That's not possible. They couldn't have developed that technology so quickly." "It's not in our records," the science officer confirmed. "It appears to be an entirely new approach to propulsion." Dravkos slammed his fist on the console. "They're adapting too quickly. We must take action before they grow too powerful." He opened a communication channel to Nexus Prime. When High Counselor Zixpar appeared, Dravkos didn't bother with formalities. "The humans are developing technology we've never seen before. They're testing it openly, making sure we can see it. It's a warning." Zixpar's 4 arms moved in patterns of distress. "The 5th treaty has been prepared. We're offering them knowledge we've never shared with any species at this stage." "It won't be enough," Dravkos warned. "They don't want our knowledge. They want freedom from our control. And at this rate, soon they won't need us at all. In Washington, D.C., Karen Wilson received word of the Council's fifth treaty proposal. As she read through it, her eyebrows rose in surprise. "They're offering us almost everything we asked for," she told Eric Collins. "Almost everything, except real independence." Collins nodded, which means it's still not enough. UN Secretary Michelle Bennett had never seen anything like Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council's capital world was a planet-sized city, with towers that reached into the clouds and underground levels that went miles deep. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved through designated air lanes, carrying representatives of 32 different species. Bennett led Earth's delegation through the massive council hall. 6 diplomats followed her, along with 2 scientists and a military advisor. They had been given quarters in the diplomatic wing, but Bennett sensed they were being watched at all times. "Remember," she told her team quietly, "we're here to negotiate, not to accept whatever they offer." A tall, slender alien with pale skin and glowing patterns waited for them at the entrance to a garden area. This was Professor Tav Lin of the Eleanor, the Council's oldest species. Secretary Bennett. Tav Lin greeted her with a slight bow. "I thought you might appreciate some time in a more natural setting before formal talks begin." Bennett nodded. "Thank you, Professor. A garden sounds wonderful." As they walked among strange but beautiful plants, Tav Lin asked questions about Earth. Unlike other council representatives, he seemed genuinely curious, not just gathering information. "Your species has so many different governments, religions, and cultures," he noted. "How do you function without a unified system?" Bennett smiled. "We don't always function smoothly. We argue, we debate, sometimes we even fight. But that diversity gives us strength. Different perspectives lead to new ideas." Tav Lin's eyes widened. "This concept of compromise. It is not common in council space. Here, the correct path is determined, and all follow it." "And who decides what's correct?" Bennett asked. Tav Lin fell silent for a moment. "It has always been this way," he finally said. Later that day, Bennett presented Earth's counter-proposal to the full council. The massive chamber fell silent as her words were translated for all species. "Earth proposes a new type of relationship," she announced. "Not integration, but alliance. We will share technology, trade resources, and stand together against common threats. But Earth will maintain its independence." The chamber erupted in murmurs and exclamations. High Counselor Zixpar raised all 4 arms for silence. "What you propose has never been done," Zixpar said. "The council structure does not allow for partial membership." "Then perhaps the structure needs to change," Bennett suggested. This caused even more commotion. Some representatives appeared outraged, while others seemed thoughtful. The council was clearly divided. Meanwhile, far from Nexus Prime, Major Sean Rodriguez led a small team in a stealth ship. Earth's leaders had sent them on a secret mission, while the official delegation kept the council distracted. "We're approaching the coordinates," his pilot reported. Rodriguez checked his equipment. Intelligence from friendly contacts in the council had led them to this remote location, a hidden archive that might contain the truth about why the council was so determined to integrate Earth. "Begin scanning," he ordered. Hours later, Rodriguez stared at the data they had recovered. It was worse than they had imagined. The archives revealed the Council's greatest secret. They were hiding from something. An ancient enemy had nearly destroyed the galaxy 12,000 years ago. The founding species had created the Council and its integration system not just for unity, but for protection. The psychic compliance built into integration wasn't just for harmony. It was to prevent any species from drawing attention from this enemy, which was somehow attracted to independent thought and creativity. "My God," Rodriguez whispered, "they're not just afraid of us being different. They're afraid we'll bring this enemy back." On Nexus Prime, Bennett was meeting with a mysterious figure, a representative of the founding species who rarely appeared in public. The ancient alien's form was hidden in flowing robes. "You must understand," the figure said in a whispery voice. "Integration protects all. Uniformity is safety." Bennett leaned forward. "But what if there's another way? What if diversity, properly channeled, could be stronger than uniformity?" The ancient alien trembled slightly. "Impossible. The enemy finds those who stand out." Or, Bennett suggested, perhaps the enemy finds those who suppress their true nature. "Tell me about this enemy. Tell me the whole truth." The Earth Security Council meeting room was silent as the 30 world leaders read the 6th treaty proposal from the Galactic Council. It offered nearly everything Earth had asked for: advanced technology, protection, trade rights, and a seat at the Council table. But one requirement remained unchanged. Earth must accept the Council's final authority on all interstellar matters. "They're desperate," Karen Wilson said, breaking the silence. "This is the most generous offer yet, but they still won't budge on the core issue." President Dan Harris looked around the table. "The vote must be unanimous. All in favor of accepting this treaty." Not a single hand raised. "All opposed." Every hand went up. "Then it's decided," Harris said. "We respectfully decline their 6th treaty." On Nexus Prime, the Council chamber descended into chaos when Earth's response arrived. General Dravkos of the Vargan military faction stood from his seat. "Enough," he roared. "These humans mock us with each refusal. They build weapons while pretending to negotiate. We must strike now, before they grow stronger." Many representatives shouted their agreement. Fear had turned to anger for many species. In a quiet corner of the chamber, junior diplomat Krylteth watched with growing concern. He had spent weeks studying human history and culture. Their refusal wasn't mockery, it was their nature. They valued freedom above all else. Krylteth caught Professor Tavlin's eye across the room. The elderly Eleanor looked troubled. He motioned for Krylteth to follow him out of the chamber. "There is something you should know," Tavlin said once they were alone. "There is an ancient prophecy, recorded by the founding species. It speaks of a race that would break the chain of integration." "What happens in this prophecy?" Krylteth asked. "Two possibilities," Tavlin replied. "This race either destroys the galaxy or transforms it forever. The Council has always feared the first outcome, but what if the second is possible?" Meanwhile, Michelle Bennett met privately with representatives from 7 Council species who had shown interest in Earth's perspective. Unlike the formal Council sessions, this meeting was relaxed, with open discussion. "Our history is full of examples where diversity led to strength," Bennett explained. "Different approaches solve problems that a single approach cannot." A representative from a crystalline species spoke up. "My people have always had private thoughts that did not align perfectly with Council harmony. We thought we were flawed." "You're not flawed," Bennett assured them. "You're individuals. That's something to celebrate, not suppress." On Earth, civilian industries were cooperating with military research at an unprecedented rate. New ships were being built with hybrid technologies, part Council science, part human innovation. Engineers from different countries shared ideas freely, competing not against each other, but against time. In orbit around Mars, Commander Nicole Peterson received urgent orders. She read them twice to be sure. "Begin immediate evacuation of all off-Earth colonies," she told her officers. "Priority to civilians, especially children and medical personnel." "Is it starting?" her second-in-command asked quietly. Peterson nodded grimly. "Intelligence reports Council military vessels have changed course. They're no longer approaching slowly. They're coming in fast." Throughout the solar system, ships began moving people back to Earth. Military vessels took up defensive positions. The first true interstellar war in 12,000 years was about to begin. Near Saturn, a small research vessel named Discovery was monitoring the gas giant's rings. Its crew of 12 scientists was far from any military installation. The ship's captain, Susan Patel, noticed strange readings on their sensors. Are we picking up a ship approaching? Her science officer checked the equipment. Yes, but it's not one of ours. It's a council vessel, Captain, moving very fast. Patel opened a communication channel. Council vessel, this is Earth Ship Discovery. We are a civilian research. She never finished the sentence. The council ship fired, destroying the Discovery instantly. The nervous council captain reported to General Dravkos. The human weapon platform has been destroyed. Weapon platform? Dravkos questioned. Our scans showed unusual energy readings. Yes, General. Their new shield technology made it difficult to determine their exact nature, but the vessel was clearly in a strategic position. What the captain didn't know, and what Dravkos would soon discover to his horror, was that the weapon platform had been nothing but a science vessel. The unusual energy readings came from experimental sensors studying Saturn's magnetic field. The first shots had been fired, based on a mistake. There was no turning back now. The first battle between human and council forces took place near Jupiter. Earth ships fought bravely but were outnumbered. They managed to destroy 3 council vessels before being forced to retreat toward Mars. On Earth, military leaders prepared for the worst. But something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared on deep space scanners. Then another. Then dozens more. What are we looking at? Admiral Daniels asked his sensor officer. Unknown ships, sir, the officer replied. Not ours, not council design either. They're everywhere, appearing at the edges of the solar system. On the main council warship, General Dravkos received similar reports. His tactical officer's skin had turned pale with fear. Sir, we're detecting multiple unknown vessels. They match no known configuration. Show me, Dravkos ordered. The screen displayed strange ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in patterns that made no sense, sometimes appearing to be in 2 places at once. Dravkos felt cold dread wash over him. No, he whispered, it cannot be. But it was. The ancient enemy the Council had feared for 12,000 years had returned. The Void Heralds had found them. The Void Herald ships ignored Earth vessels and focused their attacks on the Council fleet. Strange energy beams cut through Council shields as if they weren't there. Captain Patricia Murphy commanded the Earth vessel Defiant. She watched in horror as a Council civilian transport carrying refugees from their nearby outpost was targeted by 3 Herald ships. Those are civilians, she said. Helm, move to intercept. Weapons, prepare to engage those Herald ships. Her second-in-command looked shocked. Captain, those are the Council's people. They just attacked us. Murphy's eyes flashed. They're still people. And we protect people. Move now. The Defiant surged forward, placing itself between the transport and the Herald ships. Its new shields, designed by human engineers, flickered as they absorbed the strange energy beams. Return fire, Murphy ordered. The Defiant's weapons struck one of the Herald ships. To everyone's surprise, the shields held. The enemy vessel retreated slightly. On Earth, Dr. Alan Lewis was analyzing data from the battle when he noticed something strange. The Herald ships were targeting Council vessels with psychic dampening technology first. They're attracted to the psychic conformity, he realized. The same energy the Council uses to keep species compliant is like a beacon to these creatures. When this information reached the front lines, Earth ships began broadcasting on frequencies that disrupted the Council's psychic field. Council ships in these areas reported fewer Herald attacks. On Nexus Prime, junior diplomat Krilteth made a desperate decision. With the help of Professor Tav Lin and a small group of Council members who had been meeting with Michelle Bennett, he smuggled key Council representatives into a private ship. What you're doing is treason, one of the Council members said as they fled toward Earth. What I'm doing may save us all, Krilteth replied. The humans know something we don't. They fight differently. And right now, our way isn't working. The small ship barely escaped as Void Herald vessels, appeared near Nexus Prime. The ancient enemy had found the Council's heart. When Krillteth's ship reached Earth, they were surprised to be welcomed. Within hours, they were meeting with Earth's leaders, explaining everything they knew about the Void Heralds. They feed on psychic energy, High Counselor Zixpar admitted. The more uniform the thoughts, the stronger the signal. Our integration system, designed to prevent their return, actually makes us easier for them to find. Then we need the opposite approach, Bennett suggested. Instead of forcing everyone to think the same way, we need diversity, unpredictable patterns, creativity. Impossible, Zixpar said. Species cannot coordinate without uniformity. Admiral Daniels smiled grimly. Watch us. Within hours, Earth and the Council representatives were drafting a new treaty, not one of integration or even alliance, but of mutual defense against an existential threat. They worked with a speed the Council had never known, making decisions in minutes instead of months. Will it work? Krillteth asked Bennett as they watched Earth prepare for battle. Bennett looked at the strange mix of human and alien officers working together, each bringing different perspectives to the fight. I don't know, she admitted, but we'll find out together. 1 week after the Void Herald's arrival, the combined forces of Earth and the Council prepared for a final stand. The enemy had pushed them back to Earth's orbit, destroying countless ships along the way. In a large command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, human and alien officers worked side by side. Maps showed Herald ships surrounding Earth in a tightening circle. Conventional tactics aren't working, Admiral Daniels said to the gathered leaders. We need something they won't expect. Dr. Alan Lewis stepped forward. His team had been studying the Heralds nonstop. We've confirmed that the Heralds are drawn to psychic uniformity, he explained. For 12,000 years, the Council has trained all species to think the same way. It made you efficient, but it also made you targets. And humans? Asked High Counselor Zixpar. We're naturally resistant, Lewis said. Our minds are too chaotic, too individualistic for them to lock onto easily. And we've noticed something else. Council species who have been working closely with humans are becoming more resistant too. Professor Tavelin nodded. I have experienced this. My thought patterns have become less predictable, more creative. Sophia Gomes, who had continued developing new technologies throughout the crisis, brought up a simulation on the main screen. We don't need to destroy the Heralds, she said. We need to disrupt the signal they're following. If we broadcast a psychic pattern that emphasizes individuality rather than conformity, it might drive them away. How could we possibly do that? Zix, Var asked. Karen Wilson smiled. The same way humans have always shared ideas. We talk to each other. We share stories. We connect. The plan they created was unlike any military strategy in Council history. Instead of a coordinated attack, each ship would act independently, following general goals but making their own decisions about how to achieve them. Earth ships would be paired with Council vessels, their crews mixing to spread the human influence as widely as possible. When the battle began, the Void Heralds expected to face the same uniform tactics the Council had used for millennia. Instead, they faced chaos. Earth ships darted in unpredictable patterns. Council vessels, now crewed by both species, began showing similar unpredictability. Captain Murphy's Defiant led a small group of ships directly toward the largest Herald vessel, but instead of attacking, they activated a special device developed by Gomes and Lewis, a psychic broadcaster that amplified human thought patterns. As the device activated, something remarkable happened. Council crew members who had spent weeks working closely with humans found their natural thought patterns breaking free from years of conditioning. Each individual's unique perspective emerged, creating a psychic tapestry so complex and varied that the Heralds couldn't lock onto it. The effect spread from ship to ship. The Heralds' movements became erratic, confused. Then, one by one, they began to retreat. 3 days later, the last Herald ship vanished from the solar system. Reports from across Council space confirmed the same pattern. Wherever diversity had replaced uniformity, the enemy had withdrawn. 1 month after that, Captain William Grant stood in the same conference room where he had first refused the Council's treaty. This time, he was joined by High Counselor Zixbar, but their relationship was very different. "The new template is ready," Grant said, showing Zixbar a document on the table. "We're calling it the Galactic Alliance Treaty. It emphasizes cooperation without requiring conformity." Zixbar examined it with all 4 eyes. "A remarkable concept. Future species will have choices we never offered before." "And the Council?" Grant asked. "Changed forever," Zixbar replied. "Many species are rediscovering their unique cultures and perspectives. It's chaotic, sometimes difficult, but also exciting." On Nexus Prime, the Council chamber had been redesigned. Instead of formal rows facing a central authority, the space now featured conversation circles where representatives could engage as equals. The chamber hummed with debate, occasional arguments, and something new in Council space: laughter. Junior Diplomat Krillteth, now Earth's official liaison to the Council, watched with satisfaction. The prophecy had indeed come true. Humanity had broken the chain of integration, but they hadn't destroyed the galaxy. They had transformed it. Throughout Council space, species that had suppressed their individuality for millennia were rediscovering their unique perspectives. Meanwhile, humans were learning from Council cooperation. Neither approach was perfect alone, but together they created something new and powerful. The Void Heralds never returned. Perhaps someday they would try again. But when they did, they would face not a uniform defense, but a galaxy